Hello, everybody. I know, boring. He's back again. Okay, that's really good. I just turned off my computer. There we go. I'm not winning here today. All right. Get ready to get started. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I hope this isn't too boring or too, oh, brother. But I'm going to talk a little bit about this mess we got going on in Israel and kind of like bring it around to a point. And I'm not going to talk in depth about it or anything like that. Actually, it's going to be more a little bit of a history of Israel, the current Israel. But this began with the question of why does everybody hate the Jews? Why are the Jews so hated? And people go, well, because they oppress the Palestinians, because they call them colonizers and occupiers and stuff like that, and they want them to leave and all that. But it's kind of funny because in Russia and Chechnya, 200,000 people were killed in that battle, that war, and many of the people killed were Muslims. No Muslim countries cared about it. There were just very few protests, just nothing really to speak of. But they killed civilians, and a lot of them were Muslims. In China, the Uyghurs are Muslims that are being killed, jailed, forced to work. They get sent to, I don't know what the real name they call them, but they're basically like a concentration camp where they're basically re-educating you. They're trying to change your mindset so that you'll quit thinking like a Muslim. And again, no protests to speak of, really. People bring it up in passing here and there, but they don't really protest. In 2021 in England, there was 180,000 people that showed up to protest against Israel over the killing of 250 people in Gaza. And 100 of those were Hamas militants, terrorists, whatever you want to call them. And so 150 of them were civilians. And so you get this huge protest over that. Why? Because the Jews are involved. Simple as that. Anybody else does anything in the world to other people, and there's very little said, very little done. But if the Jews are involved, all of a sudden you got riots and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. People calling for the annihilation, the genocide of all Jews. People just all kinds of terrible things that they say, chant whatever about them. And if you go back in time, it's always been this way. I mean, we know this. When in early Europe, they needed people to lend money. And Christians wouldn't do it because of Bible verses that talk about usury and stuff like that. So the Christians weren't really wanting to lend money, but they wanted to borrow it, which doesn't make sense, but anyway. So the Jews weren't allowed to own land. They weren't allowed to work certain jobs. A whole lot of places. They weren't allowed to do anything hardly. But the Jews were willing to lend money. So the Jews became money lenders. And then when people didn't pay their debt and the Jews came to collect, all of a sudden the Jews were vicious, mean, cruel people trying to hurt people or get after people or ruin people, their lives and everything, to collect money from them. Oh, they're terrible. They were just the worst for being these money lenders. What happened eventually was the Italians took over, and they took over the banks, and they started doing the money lending. They came collecting, and nobody cared. Nobody said a thing. The only reason that the money collectors were bad was they were Jews. That's it. There was just no other reason but the Jews. And then we know in Germany, during the Holocaust, 6 million Jews were killed. And this is just because Hitler needed an enemy. It's just like what they do here in America now. They try and divide us so that we have an enemy. And as long as we have an enemy, we're not thinking about the government. Won't get too political on you on all that, but that's basically the whole concept of it. And that's what they did. So Hitler blamed the Jews for everything. And funny thing, Hitler was part Jew, supposedly. I think his mother was or something. But the Germans lost the war. What Jews were left were freed. And some stayed, some moved to other countries in Europe, and some started going back to Israel. Well, at the end of that war, they started talking about getting them a state, their own country. And a lot were starting to move back into the Israel area. And I'm going to try not to call it Palestine because it was never called Palestine. And but they started moving back into that area, in and around Jerusalem, Samaria, Judah, and all that. So they came up with an idea. It was mostly pushed, I believe, by the English, but the UN got in on it and got the backing and everything. And of course, on May 14th, 48, it was brought up in 47, but it was May 14th, 48 that it was actually ratified and signed. Every country in the UN, including Russia, every country voted for it, voted in favor of it, to take the land in what is now Israel and give it to the Jews, so much of it. And then some of it was given to Palestinian people, what they called Palestinian people. And at the beginning, Israel didn't have as much land. Of course, as soon as they got in on it, they were attacked because the Muslims hate the Jews. And they were attacked. They had to fight back. They gained some land, and lots of times in war, if you gain some land, you keep the land, and especially if it means a buffer for safety. So they kept it. It's the rules of war. And then again and again, they were attacked. We have the 6-Day War, and so forth and so on. There's many others in there, all these conflicts. But it's all because they hate the Jews. Why? What did the Jews ever do to them? Back in the day when the Jews had all that area and there was Israelite, they were the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel even, there was nobody there called a Muslim. Islam wasn't even created yet. So there was not an Arab there. It didn't have anybody called Arab. But when they captured this land and they kept it for a bit, and they got, of course, they got a lot of flack for that too. They offered it back. Several times they've offered it back. Here, you can have this land back, and it'll be yours, your country, and we'll leave you alone, you leave us alone. They say no. The Arabs say no. We want you gone. We hate you. We want you dead. I mean, that's the whole chant of from Jordan to the sea, Israel will never be. That doesn't mean they're going to get on ships and leave. It means that they want to force them into the sea, dead. They hate them. And There's something to see here with that much hate, with that much evil. Israel's in the land that was given to them rightfully through treaties signed by all the countries. It's theirs. It's not somebody else's. But they're called occupiers. They are called colonists. Like they sailed in and said, we claim this land in the name of God Almighty or somebody or something, and it's theirs now. No, they didn't do that. We did more of that here in America. We claimed the land and took it from people who are already living here. Not the right way to do it, not the right thing, but it worked out, and we're here now, and I'm not going to complain. It's still not a bad country to live in. Getting that way, but not yet. When China moved into Tibet and claimed it, and this is kind of recent, they're not called occupiers or colonists. Nobody's complaining or arguing about that either. Morocco went into the Sahara and claimed it. It's not theirs, but they're claiming it. Nobody's saying a word about that. Nobody cares. The Kurds in northern Iraq, southern Turkey. Turkey took their land. Iran took some of it. They hate the Kurds. They're Muslim on Muslim. But they despise each other, and they hate the Kurds. Nobody cares. Nobody complains. Only if a Jew is involved do they complain, do they protest, because they hate the Jews. Israel is called an apartheid nation. In Israel, they have Supreme Court judges that are Arabs, that are Muslims. They have other lower court judges that are Arabs and Muslims. They have Christians in leadership roles. They can go to any school they want to. It doesn't matter if you are Arab or Israeli. Everybody can vote, and everybody's vote counts as one, not a half or a point or 2 points or something like that. It's a full vote. It's a fair democracy. The only country in the area that does that. Yet none of the other countries are called apartheid. Only the Jews, who are not. Israel is a free state. It's mind-boggling. On October 7th, when Hamas attacked, they killed over 1,400 people. Most of those people, almost all of them, I think it would be like 99%, were civilians. There was a few military people in the area that did get killed, and there were police officers that get killed. I don't know if police officers count as military or if they count as civilian, but I'll separate those to add to the number just to try and get that full percent. But they killed all these people and these kids. And they took hostages. And for a few days, they were like, oh, this is terrible, terrible, poor Israel. But then no, they said, wait a minute, hold it. Get our head screwed on right here. We hate the Jews. The Jews are, the Hamas. I heard one guy on a news show. He is a retired military man. He said that Hamas acted like a true government, like a real government for the people, because they went in there and they did what they did. They made that attack. They planned it out, and they did that attack because they were being wronged. Their people were being wronged, so they were going to protect their people. That's hogwash. You know, line up your tanks against their tanks, and let's fight this with our armies. You don't fight with people. You don't go kill innocent people. That's not how it works. Even Japan, when they attacked us in Pearl Harbor, they attacked the military bases. Yes, some civilians got killed, but their intent was not to kill civilians. Their intent was to blow up and harm our military. I mean, I'm not defending war at all. It's stupid, but it happens. And when it happens, thank God we got good people that have signed up to go protect us and stop it, hopefully. So everything is about the Jew. And there's one common theme. Everybody in the world hates the Jew. Everybody hates the Jew. In every country, there's somebody complaining about the Jews. Now, you get some, yeah. In America, those that call themselves a Christian, most of them, are supporting Israel because they know Israel has great ties to their God and so forth and so on. So they get tied together with them and they support them. That's fine. That's good. It's a nice, a little bit of fresh air that somebody is still saying, hey, why does the world hate the Jew? Evil hates the Jews. Evil is the dark. Dark hates the light. God had to leave one tribe. It could have been any one of them, but it had to be one that still kept his Sabbath days, his holy days, and believed in him and followed his ways as best they could. And we know that they messed it up. But he had to leave one group behind. Everybody else got scattered out. And here's the thing. Folks out there, when they see Israel in the Bible, they think it's always Israel, Middle East. They don't understand that Israel is scattered all over this world. And we're all part of it. And when all the calamity in the Bible is going to happen to Israel, welcome home, Israel. It's you. Just as well, just as and people in the other countries, in Europe and so forth and so on. Because the Jews point to the great creator God, the only one God that there is. Jehovah, Yahweh, however you say it, pronounce it, he knows who we're talking about. There's only one, him. And the Jews point to him. They do things wrong, yes. They don't believe in his son, Jesus, which he wants you to do. Very much so. He demands it, matter of fact, that you believe in his son, or you will not get that eternal life. You won't come close to it. But they're not believing that. They just say he was a man and a prophet maybe of some sort. So they got problems. They've had issues with that. And we know that in the past, like, I read a couple of quick verses here. Leviticus 26:17, it says, "And I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies, that they that hate you shall reign over you, and ye shall flee when none pursues you." This is he's giving them some commands, and he's talking about his commandments. I'm not going to read all the verses to lead up to it. But he's talking about his commandments, and he wants people to keep them, to follow them. And he's telling them, if you will not do this, I will set my face against you. So they're warned. And then we have in Jeremiah 44:4, "Howbeit I sent unto you all my servants the prophets, rising early and sending them, saying, Oh, do not this abominable thing that I hate." God's pointing out through Jeremiah, hey, I warned them. I warned them. And the verses before and after this too, I'm not going to read all of them to make the point. I'm just going to paraphrase it. And so he's making the point that I warned y'all. I warned you. And what happened there? This was when Judah fell and was carried away, and they were gone. Now, they came back 70 years later, like he said. They were allowed to come back and rebuild the temple and all that, setting things up. Again, God's plan, setting things up for when the time of Jesus, they had a temple there and all. But it's all because the Jews point to God, obviously. Christians do too. We point to the same God. But the thing is, We aren't the ones that the Bible kind of says, you're my chosen people. Again, you are, because nobody understands fully what Israel means in the Old Testament in certain places where it's mentioned. And he says, you are a chosen people. You are a peculiar people. You are going to be, at one point, we're even called his inheritance. God's inheritance. That's pretty cool. You're his inheritance. So when they say Israelites are the chosen people of God, or are the chosen, they don't understand it's the other tribes too. They only see Jews in Israel, because that's the nation of Israel now. So everything points to them, to the Middle East, because it's Israel. And I don't understand Bible scholars who can figure out all this other stuff, but they can't figure this out. They can't put two and two together on this issue. Israel's all over this world, scattered about, just like God promised Abraham. He didn't forget that promise. He didn't let his friend Abraham down. Abraham was God's friend. I wish I could get that title. And it's kind of, I won't get into that, never mind. But Abraham was God's friend. He kept his word to him, because Abraham kept his word down. Abraham came this close to sacrificing his only son, just so God could have that analogy to prove to people, this is what I want, but I'll take care of the sacrifice. When he provided the ram, I want you to do the sacrifice. I appreciate how far you went, but let's use this. And he gave him a ram. And you know that ram just appeared right there. Maybe it was down the hill and he had it run up there, but I don't care either way you look at it. God made it come there. God put it there. Because he's a wonderful, super powerful, cool God. And all of this, to me, I'm sitting there looking at all this stuff going on TV, and I'm wondering about this, and I'm going, why do people hate the Jews so daggone much? Is because they point to the one true God. Islam was created 1,500 years after the Jews were part of the tribes and stuff like that. Something like that. I don't know the exact number. And some guy just wrote some stuff in a book, made it up. He probably copied half of it from the Bible. I know he did the first 5 books, some of it. But he left out things. He changed things. He made things the way he wanted it to be. And then, I ain't going to get into all that either. But it's a false book. It's a false God. But Israel points to the one true God. And who runs the world? Satan, the prince of the air. Satan thinks he's winning. He thinks he's got things licked. He thought when he had the houses of Israel all scattered and run off and everything like that, he thought he was doing really good. So then he went to work on Judah. And then Judah left and got carried away. And he thought, I did it. I got rid of his people. He thinks he's succeeding, but he's failing. And he hates the Jew. He hates us. Why? Because we have the testimony of Jesus Christ and we keep God's commandments. He hates us. There's little he can do to us at this point. The hedge is up still, I believe, for us, for not just this church, but people like us, people that do what we do and follow God. And the hedge is still up a little bit for Jerusalem and Israel. But we also know from Scripture that it's going to get worse. It's going to get bad. In John 7:7, he said, the world cannot hate you, but me it hateth, because I testify of it, that the works thereof are evil. Jesus testified that this world, and he meant it from back then all the way up to now, is evil, full of evil. We corrupt everything, we cheat, we lie, we steal. Our governments don't teach things right or do things right. Our preachers don't preach right. And on and on and on. It's an evil world. And they couldn't deny it. So they hated Jesus. Jesus was a Jew. In John 15:18, it says, if the world hate you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. Right. When you came to Jesus and God and started changing your life, not just saying I believe, but changing your life, when you came there, it hated you. People talk about you. People talk all kinds of mess about you, say things about you, joke you. But you withstand it, and eventually it just kind of dies down and goes away. I haven't been bothered by anybody joking me about keeping the Sabbath in a long time, but still. In 1 John 3:13, it says, marvel not, my brethren, if the world hates you, they will hate you. He's basically setting us up to understand, you're going to be hated. But I was hated, and I was hated first, he says. And the world hates me because I testify that it is evil. And evil is run by Satan. And he aims everybody at the Jews right now. Because he got to get, all of a sudden, Satan was looking and going, wait a minute, what's God's people doing back in this land again? I got to get rid of them. I got to get them out of here. So now he's working on trying to come up with a plan to get them out of there. And it may work to an extent, for a bit. But we know how the book ends. We actually have read ahead to the end. And we know that it ends good. Whether we live or die, it ends good for us and for the Israelites. So, and I threw this in at the last minute because I wanted to make Cord a prophet. He was over at the house the other night talking with me and Mo, and he said, what are you going to talk about? I said, not really sure, and I haven't quite decided yet. And he goes, let me guess. I said, what? He goes, somewhere along the line you're going to mention Matthew 24. And I said, how'd you guess? But I wasn't gonna, but I am now, because I like it. It fits in here. Matthew 24, verses 9 through 12. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Now, flat out it says you're going to be afflicted, and you shall be killed maybe, and you will be hated for his name's sake. Then it goes on talking about the shall betray one another, because they're going to be offended. Now, I don't know if he's talking about people just in the church, or if he's just talking about people in general that are going to be offended because maybe you keep the Sabbath or something, and so they're going to betray you. And that might be what he's talking about, but it also kind of plays that it could be the people in these churches like ours are getting offended. I don't know, by maybe something I say stupid wrong or something, or I say right that they just don't agree with. Or any other person. It doesn't have to be me. But I don't know about that. I haven't come to a full conclusion where I would say one or the other. But it could be either way or both, maybe even. And because of iniquity, which is sin, and it will abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And again, I don't know if he's just talking about people in general, or he's talking about people in his churches, actual saints. I don't think so. I hope not, because he talks about protecting the elect. So I don't think so, but it could go either way with that, and I'm not sure. But the fact of the matter is, they hate the Jews now. They're coming for you soon. You got a target on your back too. You got to be able to stand tall and straight and speak the words that the Spirit gives you. You're taking up for Jesus, who took up for you first. Okay, Freddie got in, and he's going to come up now.